All right, welcome back to another Wright podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright, and we've made it to Monday. Just keeps rotating around the big circle of life, and we're back on Monday.
Were you a big Lion King fan when it came out?
I feel like maybe I was too old to be a big fan, but I appreciate the movie.
I saw it at the theater as I was probably 14, 15, 16-ish.
Yeah.
Well, and that was Disney had quite the renaissance there, though, with like Aladdin and Lion King and a couple others. Little Mermaid was kind of around the same time frame, but they had a pretty good run there in the early mid '90s with some kind of originals.
Well, I'll say this, they had a great run, like even with Sunday nights. I don't know if you remember, like Sunday nights, they would have like a Disney movie and they had the little fairy fly and like Wright Disney and
Tinkerbell, yeah.
Yeah, it was little, and you probably know this. A lot of their stories are based on old school, either nursery rhymes or stories, and they've kind of twisted and made their own. And it's tough to come up with new ideas, but definitely 80s, 90s, early 2000s, a great strong run of stories, and kind of been downhill the last few years.
I think the Lion King soundtrack really helped. Elton John with a number one hit coming off a soundtrack. It's pretty strong when you get a like Grammy winning like legendary artist to do your soundtrack for you. So
you probably heard this. Hey, real quick, you probably heard this. The guy that was singing on Lion King was offered a little bit of money, and he's like, "No, I'll just take like 1% or a very small percentage." So he went from maybe it was like $1 or $2 million, or it was a lot of money, but not nearly what he eventually made. And so he eventually took royalties off of it and made a killing. So somebody got some really good advice.
Yeah, those stories are always interesting when somebody gets offered, 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is, or like 0.2% of all revenue. And it's like 0.2. That doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah, 1.4. Yes.
Yeah, man, you get those movies that just have lives upon lives and then grow audiences. And I mean, you look at like Star Wars still going strong after coming out, the late 70s, and the Rocky franchise still going strong. All the Marvel stuff. There's lots of those franchises, and I guess for every one of those, there's probably 10,000 of them that don't succeed and don't do well. You're like, I should have took the $5 grand, something like that. But
I would argue now, Paulie, are any franchises really going strong? Right? I mean, I know you went and saw the last Marvel movie.
Yeah,
it's okay. I wonder if any of these movie franchises are going strong anymore. It doesn't feel like it. Like there's no movies I see advertised. I'm like, I'd like to go. And I've got a pretty wide variety of kids, not super young kids anymore, but and I like movies. And
there's a new Jurassic Park this summer. I'm excited about. They're kind of rebooting that a little bit. I'm excited about I like all the dinosaur stuff. That's fun.
Marvel, I do too. My kids never got into it though. We've seen them. I don't know. They never appreciate. I think we were at that age where the first one that came out, the visuals on it were so unique and just so like.
Oh gosh, man! When the original Jurassic Park, when you saw the dinosaurs and the John Williams did the score for it, I mean, dude, it didn't get any better than that. The T-Rex out there eating the car. Oh wow, the theater they had just introduced like the surround, and the theaters was really coming alive. You hear like the footsteps.
Yeah.
No, just amazing. Yeah. And again, we were at that perfect age, kind of early teens, just when you can really buy into that kind of stuff. But the new one does have Scarlett Johansson in it as well, so that doesn't hurt things.
Yeah, she's a good actress.
Yeah, good actress, and she did a great job in all the Marvel stuff, so I appreciate that. But
wasn't she painted blue most of the Marvel? Wasn't she like Mystic? Wasn't she one of the characters?
She was Black Widow.
Oh, okay. So I was confused. Okay.
Yeah, very, very confused in that. Yes. But
not unusual.
So we had, Brian and I both called a women's Wolfpack victory in the ACC title game.
I think we were pulling for them. I don't know if we called it.
Yeah, we didn't play the call. We were pulling for them. They didn't win. So congratulations to the Duke Blue Devils. Want to make sure we talked about that because we kind of talked about it yesterday. Make sure we touched on that a little bit. Didn't watch any of it. Saw a couple of the highlights. Looked like a solid game. Good job, Duke Blue Devils.
It felt very NC State-esque. NC State has two ways to bury your soul. One is to give you hope, and the other is to have no hope. And then when they give you hope, they bury you. So you have, obviously, NC State fired Coach Keatts, right?
Yeah, so speaking of hope, the ultimate case of what you just said, Brian, hope to no hope. Final Four to not making the ACC tournament. And we talked about it a few days ago, and we both said we would be really surprised if Kevin Keatts made it past this weekend, realistically. And
somebody still came out of pocket with some money, though, because he added a couple years with what he did last year. And I think, like you had mentioned, that he probably would have been fired last year if he wouldn't have made that run. And I think we said it earlier, it was a pretty good indication that you're not in a great place if you can't build off of that and at least be competitive the following year.
Yeah, absolutely. So they do have to buy out some of his contract, but there's already some names out there. An assistant from Tennessee, George Mason's coach, Rick Pitino Jr. from New Mexico, Ben McCollum from Drake, Alan Huss, a smaller school at High Point. Julius Hodges' name has been thrown out there. He's coaching at Lincoln in Pennsylvania right now. Archie Miller, he's at Rhode Island right now, but Archie had a little run at Dayton and at Indiana. So there's some names thrown out there and some a little bit of lineage and history between a couple of those names. But it'll be interesting. Again, really, really early in that search process. But those processors it's really interesting because I know a lot of schools like to stay close to the program, like people who played it, who've coached it in the past, and it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. And I know whoever comes in is going to, want to send a message and really hit the recruiting trail hard. And because we talked about it, man, you've got kind of that little brother complex, and you've got the two big brothers, 20 minutes down the road who are kind of the biggest and the toughest of brothers, right? So you're going to have to fight for recruits in the state from those two schools, and then you have to fight nationally. And again, one of the things we've talked about kind of in the immediate for NC State is just raising money. Like how are you gonna keep these kids here?
Well, I don't disagree with anything you said. I'm kind of a fan of going outside because here's the reality. You may come back and not have whoever gets hired may not have a single person on his team, a roster member that played.
Yeah.
Because every year, not only are you recruiting to the portal, you're recruiting to keep your kids out of the portal. So there's a pretty good chance whoever steps in is literally going to have to start from the ground up. And that's just such a tough job. That's such a tough job. Hey, Paul, I need you to raise your cup up one more time, if you would, the cup you're drinking out of. When I first saw that, I thought you were having the prescribed Shane Willis couple of beers.
King Gillis.
Gillis, I thought you had a couple of beers being prescribed to you. I know you don't drink at all, but I did think that. It looked like you were trying to make it look that way, and I'm sure that's a cup from some event.
So for those watching on YouTube, so check out the YouTube. This is my 2001 High Desert Mavericks mug. So they gave us these at the beginning of the season. And when we were in the clubhouse, they said, you can refill this for free. Just go to the concession stand. We'll refill it for free. And it's got the little schedule on it. So I can tell you where I was from April 5th through looks like September 3rd that year in 2001. And that was, man, I mean, it was kind of a fun season, terrible place to pitch, but that's where I was during 9/11, High Desert, Adelanto, Victorville, California. And we actually lost in the playoffs the night before. But yeah, man, love this thing. Our manager, I've mentioned him a couple times, Frank Grimbliss. He made us stop getting sodas during the middle of the year instead of only water in the mugs. So it was that's probably a smart. He was a healthy guy. He was in the gym a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
It's
He saw
probably
you guys turning into fat bastards
yeah,
throughout the
probably a
entire
wise
season.
thing. But yeah, that was so that's where I was during 9/11, and I remember just waking up and actually my wife calling me and saying, "Hey, this is going on," because I was 3 hours behind. And I was like, "Why are you calling me?" It was still fairly. It was like 6:30 in the morning, West Coast, and that man. That was a crazy time. That's a whole separate podcast on its own right there, probably.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So hey, Kevin Keatts, thank you for the memories last year. Um,
You mentioned it though, Paulie. What was he? Basically 2-6, making the postseason.
yeah, he made it 3 of 8 seasons, and he did mention, hey, in his press release or his statement, he said, "Hey, I feel like I left the program in a better place than when I got here." And if you remember when he got here, though, they were in some trouble from the NCAA for that Dennis Smith Jr. stuff, the sanctions, and they were in a little bit of hot water. So he picked up some baggage.
Well, now it's legal to pay guys.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, what do you say? Good for him for doing it, because that's not. I mean, like, I don't know. You probably have never been fired from jobs. I've been closed probably a couple times, and I just think about like if I had been walking out of a place and I had somebody stick a microphone in my face and like, "Hey, Brian, hey, what do you think about your experience at this place, this place, this place?" And you're trying to give an explanation of why you didn't meet the standard or why you were leaving, even if you quit a job. If somebody interviewed you post job and was like, "Hey, Paulie, we know you left this place. You've been there 12 years. You've had a really good run. Um, why did you feel like it was necessary to leave and go somewhere else? You had that upward mobility. Why did you feel like it was? That's just a tough thing to answer those questions immediately after anybody, especially somebody in that.
Well, you know what makes it a little easier, Brian, when NC State has to pay you $7.8 million.
Yeah, that does make it easier.
Hey, Brian, we don't want you here. We don't think you can do this job, but we're going to give you like $8 million to not even do this job. How's that sound, fella?
That sounds good, and I would say all nice things as I was walking out too.
I think.
Hey, I left this place. I know I came in and have all these high expectations, and I've left this place. I feel like in a better place, and hopefully they can continue on and do good things. And I'm gonna go to an island for a couple of years and hang out.
I'm not. Yeah, I may buy just a little portion of the island, buy some land on there, and he, yeah, like I said, he did inherit a bit of a mess from. It was Mark Gottfried that was there. I think Gottfried kind of gets lost in the mix. Not a lot of people remember his little run at NC State.
But he had a couple of good little runs with some good teams. It seems like he always seemed to find like young women that were maybe. I don't know. Like, I know that was his Alabama story. I'd heard stories maybe around NC State where he's chasing some split tails, chasing some young ladies, and that sometimes can get you in trouble no matter what your age is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ultimately, I think what got him fired is not winning and then getting caught for cheating and probably lying about it too, paying players.
Yeah,
that'll tend to get you fired.
That used to do it to you. Now it's encouraged, and people really love it. So
that's all true.
So a lot of news going on at NC State here. And then the ACC tournament kicks off this week, which is exciting, and a lot of other conference tournaments going on. So we'll be tracking those and thinking, sharing some news about those as it happens. But it is Monday, Brian. You know what that means?
Athlete you should know.
Athlete you should know. So the athlete you should know this week, we're taking it a different direction, somewhere we haven't gone, and something we don't talk about. We're going to boxing, Brian. Boxing. A guy named Chuck Wepner. You ever heard of Chuck Wepner, Brian?
I have not. I think you mentioned him earlier, and I was like, he could be like a postal man. No clue.
Yeah. So Chuck Wepner, known as the Bayonne Bleeder, and he was known as the Bayonne Bleeder because he was known for just not being like wildly skilled, wasn't super fast, wasn't great, but could take a hit. Right? Was kind of the thing. Like he earns reputation for kind of toughness and resiliency, right? And so,
What you respect, because life gives you plenty of hits. You respect people. You just got to keep getting back up. Keep
yeah.
getting back up.
And he had a series of pretty solid wins through the 60s and 70s. But he caught his big break in 1975 when he was selected to fight the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. So Ali had just won the title from Foreman, and they wanted him to have just kind of a fight to kind of get him
Almost a celebration type fight.
Yeah, kind of back on his feet and ready to go. And so they selected Chuck Wepner kind of out of nowhere. And so the fight was in Richfield, Ohio. And it was just one of those fights where, like, you're not taking Wepner. And, the odds were really heavily stacked against him. Nobody thought he'd make it past, like, the second or the third round. And the fight went 15 rounds.
Incredible. 15. That was 15 rounds now.
50, yeah, don't even go that far now. And Wepner just got the mess beat out of him. And Wepner actually knocked down Ali in the 9th round with a kind of a body blow. And Ali didn't get knocked down hardly ever, right? So that was a huge deal. Ali eventually won in the 15th round, hit the TKO, right? Knocked him down and knocked him out. But despite that loss, Wepner, just gained a whole lot of notoriety for that, right? And so the reason, okay, so all right, Paul, some guy got beat up, fought hard against Ali. Why does he matter? Well, there was a fellow named Sly Sylvester Stallone watching that fight, and it inspired Stallone to actually write the movie Rocky. And so Chuck Wepner was the muse for that movie. And so it mirrors what Rocky's story was, right? This kind of down on his luck, hardworking, blue collar kind of guy, kind of an underdog, a no name out of nowhere. And Apollo Creed was Ali, right? This kind of fast talking, good looking, really athletic, great boxer. And that was the inspiration for that movie. And so, and then Stallone had said it was him and Rocky Marciano a little bit, right? And so Wepner went on, actually got no credit for it, didn't get any money for it, and went on. He actually sued Sylvester Stallone in real life, but the lawsuit was dismissed. But there's still this, kind of marriage between Wepner and the Rocky story. But it's really interesting that he, like I said, just this kind of out of nowhere fella fights Ali, goes 15, and it literally inspires a nation, right? So,
well, eventually it does. Obviously Rocky was beating Apollo Creed at the end, right? And then it kind of changed his whole trajectory of career life. Obviously the story changed, and now you have a whole Creed kind of.
Oh, the Creed movies are great. Yeah, I love.
Yeah, and they're good. They're good movies as well. And so it's funny though. Whenever you think about Rocky, you definitely think about the underdog story. I heard with Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, he had been offered tons of money to be able to sell that movie if he wasn't going to be involved, and he kept hanging on to it. There were so many times where, hey, we like your story, we want to do it. We don't want you to have anything to do with it. And he held on to it. And it's like, hey, if I can't act in it, if I can't be in it, be a part of it, I don't want this to go.
Yeah.
Betting on himself. Bet on himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple of movies about Chuck Wepner. There's one called The Real Rocky. It's a documentary. And then there's one just called Chuck that came out in 2016. So a movie about Chuck. So if you want to go watch more about Chuck Wepner, those would be good places to continue learning about him. But yeah, and we've talked about that, the underdog story and everything that Rocky became. And man, like in the Boxing Hall of Fame, a fictional character in the Boxing Hall of Fame, just really incredible. And what Rocky has meant to that sport. Brian, have you ever boxed or did any sort of MMA kind of stuff?
No, I kind of wish. I think if I'd have grown up at a different time, we used to get boxing gloves when I was a kid, and we would go out to buy some chicken houses, and it turned angry very quick. We were supposed to be camping, and we'd have boxing gloves.
Well,
And
who
it
was
was
we? Is this like you and your brother, or like friends?
no, no, my brother would have nothing to do with us. My brother's in college at Liberty University, being the good person that he should be.
Oh, so
I'm
you were like
not.
in high school, so you're older.
Yeah, yeah, I'm high school, so I'm 16, 17, 18 years old, and so we would go out with friends, and we're camping, and there's some guys who have boxing gloves. I did it once, and I just remember it felt like a real fight. But there were some guys who did it several times. Some were my friends, and they were kind of fighting each other. I was like, man, I just can't do this because it makes me mad, and it's not something I can just turn the page on. I can't just. That's what I respect about the boxer. The boxer can get hit and keep his cool and still try to keep his technique and not let his mind go into a raging fit. I had not trained obviously at all. I've been to a couple of the boxing not be fat kind of places before.
Yeah,
You
like
know,
cardio boxing, and
yeah, where they got bags and there's groups in there. And I was much younger when I did it. I don't know, probably 10 years ago. And so I think those things are really good. I do think, there's something to the discipline of all of it that I think would definitely translate to being an athlete, but it was something that I've never did.
yeah,
How
that's
about
just
you, Paulie?
no chance. That seems terrible and awful. And we were watching the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, and they're showing all the montages and training things leading up to it. And even like Mike Tyson is like a 80-year-old dude. I'm like, oh my God, like look how fast he is. Look at those. Like I would have no chance. I'd be knocked out in 30 seconds. Like I don't. No, never. I've never. I don't think I've ever actually put on like a real pair of boxing gloves. Um, I've
We
never been.
had 16 ounce. We had heavy gloves. We had
Yeah.
obviously two sets. You didn't have to go 1-1. I've had some friends who've grown up in that situation where, some guys I played with, they only had one set of boxing gloves, so they put one on one hand, one on the other hand, and like hold other hands, and then they'd have to hit each other across. So yeah, some good stuff there. They were Georgia boys, but yeah, it's I think the real boxers, that's the reason, honestly, I like boxing more than MMA. I know MMA is 1,000 times more popular now than boxing,
Oh yeah.
but the art of it, the skill of it, there's more to it than just, I don't know. It's more of a sport where MMA is more of a survival. And MMA, I think I was watching basketball. Oh yeah, I think I was watching basketball last night or maybe the night before, and all of a sudden MMA comes out on after, and there's two guys fighting. I can't name them, but they're fighting each other. One guy's beating. And all of a sudden the other guy gets him in a submission move and wins, right? And so
Those
it's
matches
just
flip so quick, man. They
it
flip so
flips.
quick.
And so
Yeah.
maybe that's what's appealing. I don't know. Maybe there'll be a point in my life. My kids are raised. My morality feels like you got to move it a little bit. It feels very close to like people used to be real critical of like the Romans and the gladiators. Like, hey,
Yeah.
how can you watch somebody kill somebody else? And we're not far from that with MMA.
Yeah, it's people out there fighting. Well, do you remember the first? I think they called it Ultimate Fighting or
Yeah.
something. I don't know what it was originally called. I remember me and my buddy when I guess we were probably juniors in high school ish, but it became like a real thing.
Oh, very much
But
so. Yeah.
there was no real like rules, or there was no rounds, and there was and I think we actually like rented it, like pay per viewed it or whatever. And there was no rounds, there was no matches, there was no times. It was just
It's
like
just somebody
Paul and
got
Brian
knocked out
are getting in the ring and they're gonna fight.
until somebody can't get up or is
Yeah,
dead.
and so we thought it was gonna be like street fight. Like we were ready to just watch like a fight in the hallway in high school. That's what we were hoping for. But it was a lot of very like jiu-jitsu and Brazilian stuff. Like it was legitimate like moves, and people were like, and there was like a Greco-Roman wrestling in there, and it turned out to be just a lot of people kind of hugging and I mean trying to break each other's leg in half, but there was a lot of submission moves, and there wasn't as much action.
Did you learn anything?
I learned that I didn't want to do it or watch much more of it because again, we thought it was gonna be like a street brawl, like what we would see in a high school, something like in a hallway if a fight broke out.
So you wanted to be like have one of those camera views. Like now, every time there's a fight, you can see them on YouTube, you can see them on X, you can see them on everything. There's some goofball who's got a camera. You were kind of ahead of the game. Yeah, that's what you thought you were getting.
That's what we were hoping for. Yeah, yeah. I loved a good fight in high school. It was, yeah, just all the crowd, the energy, the excitement. Yeah, seems kind of odd, but it was exciting. I liked it. It wasn't like there was one every day. It didn't have, so it was kind of an event. But anyhow,
Were
so
y'all on campus or off campus kind of school? Were y'all fighting on campus or were y'all planning this and going off campus?
no,
Most of the ones that you
it's
had.
typically in the hall. It's like broke. Like I don't think anything was ever planned. Not that I was never involved in them. I just kind of every once in a while you just happen to be like walking down the 500 hall and all of a sudden a group gathered around and like as soon as it happens you're like here we go, all right, and you gather and you jump in, you start screaming and then
So
somebody
I'm not
falls.
sure whether we're smarter or dumber. There was a number of like planned off campus because you knew if you did it in on campus, it was going to get broken up pretty quickly, and there was never going to be anything real, with the exception of a handful of blows. So there were guys in situations that, hey, so and so is going to fight. They're going to be here, and then people
Yeah,
would go. I didn't go, but I know some people who went, and they would go and they'd form a circle, and they'd fight, and I'm sure you'd be liable if somebody got killed. It'd been terrible
yeah,
for everybody if
dude,
anything would have really happened.
that happened my freshman year in high school at another high school. There was same situation. Hey, we're gonna go meet at the park after school. Somebody brought a gun, and yeah, and like I was actually talking this with my brother-in-law a while back, and he was actually I didn't know this. He was on the jury for that case. It's crazy, but it was a fight that happened, and I don't know if it was somebody. I think it was somebody. And I can't remember exactly, but somebody was involved. But they brought a gun and ended up like just kind of shooting randomly into a crowd, and like kid was killed in the thing. And I don't think it was actually one of the kids that were fighting, but just a Paul or a Brian just hanging out watching sort of thing. Like yeah, that's
Bad news. Bad news.
yeah,
All
terrible.
the way around. I do think fights are safer than letting it build up. I do think I don't want to say I'm anti-bullying, but I do think something happened once there became such an emphasis on bullying. I feel like something happened in our culture. And so, I'm not saying I'm for bullying, but sometimes being able to tell people the truth and you have that guy that's bullies, and then that guy eventually fights back. There's something to be made there.
There's got to be a hierarchy. There's got to
Yeah.
be a. You
And
got
it can't be a phantom protected one. Yeah.
can't be a flat. Yeah, you can't have a flat organization in your school. You got to have a hierarchy. Yeah, I mean, remember when George McFly socked Biff?
Yes.
It
Yes.
changed the trajectory of his life. I know it's a movie, but it felt pretty real, right?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it was. That's a great movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, that's all we got for y'all today. We appreciate you listening. Make sure you follow, subscribe, like us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Pod, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you can find podcasts. We appreciate you listening.
Out. Go Pack.